So comparing the climate in Europe or comparing the cities in Europe to the cities of different places in the Middle East or in south of India, how do you compare the situation there right now that you are in Vienna? And of course, in the middle of the Europe, Vienna, of course, is one of the best cities, if it's not the best city of the world, I would say. But how do you compare the quality of the life? What are the major things that comes to your mind to say that Europe is different than the other cities in the world, or how different it is from the Middle East, or how different it is from India?
I have to say it's completely. You feel as if you're on a different planet when you step into Vienna. That's how I felt when I came here the first time itself. And it's still the same. It holds still the same. How I can say the difference in the Middle East is the weather there is like it's either hot or it is very hot. You have nothing else there. When you're coming from such a place, it's like you are in a wonderland here in Vienna. It's such a beautiful, inviting place, and all around. For me, like 12 months, it's like Christmas here when you're coming from such a place. In the Middle East, there is such a hot place, and I love to see the people as well. They're very interacting here as well. They're very welcoming. Another good special thing which I understand is the love for the language. They're very passionate language lover of German, which I was thinking, okay, that's nice to hear, nice to see, but it can't be mistaken in such a way that they don't understand English. They are very good English speakers as well, even though they're very passionate about their own language, which is good to see. Most of the people, or I have to say all of the people I have spoken in Vienna and Austria, they know English. And they speak very good English, and they're very good in communication. So it's very good and very helpful for me to integrate with the people here very quickly.
You mentioned very important points about Austria. I would say that most of the people in Austria, they can speak some levels of English. So there are different levels. Sometimes the question is that whether they want to speak in English or whether they have this self-confidence to speak in English or not. In most of the cases, they understand English. I mean, there is maybe some percentage of the people, they don't understand English. But when it comes to the younger generation, I totally agree that 100% of the people, they understand English. Even there are many kids here that going to the multinational schools and so on. But being in Austria, it's quite good to also speak with the people in their local language. And this is already something that you already started. From Kerala, you already know the Malayalam language, and going then to Tamil Nadu, you have a little bit of grasping the other language. Then going to Middle East, of course, you speak most of the time English, and you know a few other words of the local language and everything. Apart from these, you know Hindi language, and now apart from all of these, now you already started learning German. So how difficult it is to move from one language to the other? How do you feel when you talk about talking different languages and your language skills, or how difficult it is for you to learn a new language?
Actually, this is like a learning process all the time, and I understood as a small kid. Okay, the moment you move to a new territory, new environment, okay, you have to get into the system. Then you need to talk their language mostly to understand how you gel with them. So I understood. Of course, I have a mother language, then I have a national language that's helped me in India. Then I moved to Middle East, where I know some basic Arabic language, which is also essential, which they teach you there, or you can learn by yourself, which is also part of integrating with the Middle East there. Now, of course, being here, it is essential that some basic you should be knowing, even though the people talk a lot of English. I understand it is a part of the culture here. We can learn a little bit German as well. To be fair and honest, I feel it is not very difficult for me to learn German, understand and talk some of the basic points. I believe, of course, I can easily get much of the German language pretty soon.
Sanju, let's switch to German. Ob ich jetzt gerade etwas auf Deutsch fragen kann, ist das okay, wenn wir jetzt gerade ein bisschen auf Deutsch reden?
Ja, sehr gerne. Bitte schön.
Okay, gut. Sanju, wenn wir um eine neue Einstellung reden und in eine Firma eine Position zu bekommen, Was sind die Hauptargumente, dass eine Firma sich für dich entscheidet?
Okay, weil ich viel technische Erfahrungen habe und weil ich sehr schnell lerne und weil ich sehr motiviert bin.
Okay, das ist natürlich sehr, sehr gute Argumente, was du da hier genannt hast. Natürlich Erfahrungen, es ist ganz, ganz klar, kann ich bestätigen, dass du sehr viele technische Erfahrungen hast. Natürlich im Bereich CAD und finite Elemente und die restlichen Themen. Schnell lernen, das kann ich auch bestätigen, das ist ganz klar. Und motivieren, klar auch, ja. Talking about the language, many people who are interviewing international people in Austria, they try to ask questions in German. In reality, the people are interested to know whether you are culturally integrated in the system or not. We know that it's not all about language, it's sometimes more about the cultural integrity. So, since you've been working in the European companies, even in the Middle East, and this is a Swedish company that is located also in Switzerland. So you're also very familiar with this kind of European way of working and you know this working culture. So it's more important to know the culture or working culture rather than really knowing all the bits and pieces of the specific language. So the people like you who know the culture are a little bit more advanced than those people who just know the language and they have a specific levels of the language they achieved. So talking about different culture, maybe you can tell a little bit more about your experience of working with a multinational European company, the working style, and this kind of cultural integrity that you learned in that company.
Yeah, this is very important question. I would say what I understood in my experience is the working culture, understanding the working culture of different continents. I was pretty privileged to be in different continents, understanding their work culture. When I was here in Europe for some months during my visits, I was sitting with different departments. Sitting with the design department, with the production sites, and even we used to go to meet clients as well. First, I was thinking what's all about going to client when I was just able to hear what they're talking. But then I understood it's a very important phase to understand how your people are talking to clients, how they are dealing with different business propositions. Back in the office, how they work with the projects, how they work with the production unit, the design units. So I was sitting with all these teams, understanding how all these things come together. The work culture plays a very important role in implementing such a work style, bringing all together. And I would say it's very important. It's totally different from what I had an experience, but that's how I learned the difference, how you need to make changes in yourself, how to get integrated with the European market. Even with the cultural side, not just the language style, even with the cultural, you need to get integrated with them, understand who the person are, how they react, how they work, how things are done in this particular way, even though you've done things very differently, even though we have been in different sectors, this is how things work in Europe. You have to abide or understand how they work. This helped me during my course of experience in this 10 years to get a good grasp of how things are working in Europe and other places in the world. I would strongly believe this will help me in the future for myself being here, taking forward.
This is totally correct what you just mentioned. For many employers and human resources, this is totally clear that when we are talking about a specific language skills required for the job, in most of the cases, they mean that they need a specific cultural integrity or understanding the working culture. So this is something that people usually aware of, that people are knowledgeable about the minimum language requirement, but actually in reality, they mean the cultural integrity. So the 10 years of experience that you have in an international environment should be also considered as a huge cultural integrity that you have. Though you didn't have 10 years of speaking in German language, but you were exposed, at least for the last 5 years, to the German culture, German way of working, and this kind of multicultural, or 10 years of working in multicultural. So even though your experience in speaking in German is not 10 years, but since your cultural skills are quite wide in this area, a smart human resource person or a smart employer will consider that as equivalent to speaking of the language. So I totally understand if a human resource is approaching you and say that, hey, for your case, in your case, because you have a good multicultural, or let's say cultural integrity, for you, the requirement of having a German language, a German certificate might not be required. This is something that we know that since I've been also involved in many cases that the people initially in the job title, they require a specific German language. So they say the minimum of the German language level, this one. In reality, when you talk with these people, you see that they are more smart than what is just written on the paper. They really mean that they really want to have some cultural integrity, which you already have. So this is quite an advantage for you. And I'm sure that you will be a total added value for any company, even though they might need to provide you some initial German courses just to speak in German. But the good thing is that you already have the major part of the cultural integrity of that.
Yeah, true. I believe so. It should be a value-added point here.